Hi there, I'm Greg. I'd like to talk to you today about some concepts that I've been thinking about. In particular, I'd like to introduce something that I think of as a chiral way of integrating material that's very difficult to understand or believe. And I call it the schizophrenic interface because it seems as though there's a great deal of stuff that's just so hard to believe out there on the internet and in our cultures. And we either dismiss the things or integrate part of the things, working with some of the things, and have a difficult time ontologically with the material. So it's like, for example, there are a lot of cultural taboos that make it very difficult because of plausible deniability. And is this something that's really something that's actually occurring or taking place? Or if this thing is really occurring or taking place, such as the UFO UAP thing in ufology, the ability for one to kind of mentally grasp or hold on to the subject without getting siloed or echo chambered is something that I'm sort of really interested in working with, and I call it the schizophrenic interface because these things seem crazy. What is it that we decide is crazy? And forensically, how do you approach an entry point in the best possible way? One approach I think would be taking a timeline. So, for example, right now we have a synthetic structure as it relates to the hip-hop phenomenon. In my perception, we have the figures of people such as Puff Daddy, where he seems to represent some kind of a construct. And backtracking a bit, it looked like when Kurt Cobain killed himself, I'll go put that into some kind of parentheses or quotations. He kills himself. He kills himself because we are led to believe that he has a drug problem, a heroin addiction. He's in a somewhat abusive relationship, and he kills himself. And then in so doing, the grunge era ends up by the wayside. The grunge era ends and becomes sort of like alternative rock for quite a while, where the synthetic elements of the music industry seem to be main drivers of political sandbox thinking or sandbox behavior, as it were, with how as it pertains to you as an individual. And if you do not account for that, you sort of are more or less you're held in a place where you want to participate in society, you want to belong, or you want to feel out or eke out for you your cornerstone in this sort of matrix that we're thrust upon. You know somewhat that what you're dealing with is theater. You're dealing with some element of theater. You're dealing with an element of encampment and how psychological factors impact our perception and interpretation of this. So it's one hand, you do not want to appear to be nuts to people when you start to talk about phenomena. In the case of how do you talk about something such as mind control without running into this abyss-like situation of free fall? And then when you're falling through all of that material, you sort of get a sense that it has no ground really as it pertains to some kind of set of epistemological things. Like how in terms of epistemology, how is it that you begin to think about the item that it is that you're thinking of, and taking a step towards how it chirally enacts in that how do you as a individual plug in to the concept of something that is in this schizophrenic interface. So this schizophrenic interface is where the edge of normal things arise upon this barrier between this is something we cannot accept, this is something that we cannot allow to be part of our reality. And I'm taking a really big stab at it this time. It's sort of like a what we're dealing with is a post-truth scenario in which the media is no longer telling you what happened. It's telling you how to think about what happened. So it's already inserting itself into a place that a territory that why don't you build upon a mature element in order to feel into this? Or why don't you spend some time deconstructing this so that you have room to breathe in this particular stuff? And I would venture to guess that the current debates sort of leave us into a sense of lack of community, in that if you were to gain traction with a friend or a family member or your group, when you move through this paradigm shift, you happen to realize that there's a great deal of synthetic lenses that are being placed over it in terms of how main celebrity would weigh in on such a subject like covert means of manipulation. So these covert means of manipulation are somewhat algorithmically driven, and it's getting to the place of understanding and recognizing that you yourself are a target of advertisement. So continuing on with the idea of being a target of advertisement, if you have a phone, the phone is like a nexus point. The phone is like an example of what you becoming the product, you producing for a product, you consume through the product of your own consumption. And in all of those particular avenues, the main thrust is that it's direct. It's a kind of a surveillance. It's a kind of a surveillance where your next move can be anticipated, your next purchase can be anticipated, and in that sort of a framework, the media landscape takes on another form entirely, even further. So the people like David Grush that are they're like kind of like a pop. They're like a pop cultural unwitting, potentially an unwitting kind of wedge issue manipulation. They don't, maybe they know, maybe they don't. In the case of David Grush, it seemed to me that he did not know what he really could potentially be unintentionally be protecting, be espousing, giving away, like it could be something to the effect of he saw a particular open window, and then the established UFO group, the UFO community, sort of pounced on this. It's a sort of a pouncing effect that you kind of get a sense of that when the whole Pizzagate thing happened, where clearly had hallmarks of something occurring in that regard, yet when it's pounced upon, it becomes something even further hard to believe. It's just something further more difficult to wrap your head around. And in the case of situations that have hallmarks of this type of phenomenon, like unusual deaths, that or unusual events, such as the balloons flying over the United States. It's difficult as a regular average person, I would think, that was following this particular reporting, You know, to imagine that we would allow for a balloon to fly over. You would not contain the balloon. You would not hack the balloon. You would not provide a countermeasure to a balloon. You let the balloon fly over. You're allowing for the balloon to conduct its operation. And the net result of that is that now, the American people will have in their mind somewhere, maybe not even conscious to them, that we're not safe from a threat. Like we're not, like the military wouldn't act to protect us, in a sense, from what the balloon could or could not do. You know, in a hypothetical world, if the balloon, you know, a very hypothetical world, if the balloon, and again, I'm just saying that because this is just a talk, but in a hypothetical world, couldn't the balloon have a virus in it? Could the balloon be filled with some kind of hazardous material? Could the balloon have a target? I mean, like even a regular person would be thinking, what kind of threat does the balloon even represent? As a trial balloon. We have stuff coming along here like, you mean to tell me that the balloon was allowed to do what it was going to do up until the point where the balloon was shot down, and then we see like very really kind of terrible photography of them picking up wreckage of the balloon. No video of them picking up. There's no video of them picking up the balloon. What I mean, really, what are we led to? What are we supposed to do with that? I mean, it's balloon's got a camera on it. From what we've seen, a balloon. We've got balloons with cameras on them, and they have all kinds of gadgetry and electronic equipment, surveillance. I'd suspect that the thing has more than just a regular optic. You know, it would be like what would its purpose have been? And then the other avenue out would be, how incompetent can that, like, we're gonna allow the balloon to do its thing and tell the press, we're gonna tell the press a story about the balloon, and then there will be a story upon a story, as it were. I'll return momentarily. So these would be examples of the schizophrenic interface as it is right now. So this is like the net neutral. If we're even being generous, the net effect of having allowing the American people to remain in a kind of post-COVID trauma where we're behind and never ahead of whatever that was. It's you're going to be sort of more or less afraid to leave your home. You're going to have like the paranoia element in this schizophrenic interface idea that I have. Is like, I am there. It seems like I could be capable of a thought that is illegal. Like your thought, you're committing a crime somehow, thinking that any kind of capture of any kind of addictive quality to a television programming on Netflix and so on, where there's an inherent message, an inherent politicized message, an inherent social inflammational message, a message that at the end of the day you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. It has a face now. It may as well have horns. I mean, it may as well be stimulated by caffeine and rove around in such a way that like it's a thought form, like it has something with teeth on it, and things such as like any normal social irritant starts to get a tinge of what it is that it starts to have, that take on the same tenor, like going back to the end of grunge. What was going on with grunge that needed to be stopped, if you put it into this framework? What was happening with the apex of the 1990s, where we had a lot of different. We had, when was it that the Berlin Wall fell, and East Germany and West Germany were united, and the symbology of that. So, for example, you're like the question then becomes, what was so dangerous about grunge and angst toward the Gen X lifeblood of angst against the something, whatever the something is. There's a unhappiness in my apathy. I'm stuck in this unhappy apathy, and this is not something that I chose, but I chose it. Or in the millennial might think, like really reduce the concept of capitalism into like that every form of capitalism would become surveillance capitalism, or every form of socialism is actually what we should strive for, as systems that we think or would promote the solution. How do you arrive at what the solution looks like, so that I do appreciate you listening to me talking, very much so, and I will continue on for a little bit. Let me consult my notes. I have LLM assisted notes. So I have assisted notes here. The notes are saying, discuss the potential significance of the hidden elements and their implications in understanding what's happening essentially in the culture. So while I don't pretend that I know 100% what's happening in the culture, there's thematic, overarching things that I think I can attest that I understand to some extent. In the context of talking about the music industry, look at what it's become now. Your view or listen or click or like, at the end of the day, amounts to pennies. And in this particular vein of approach, the time that it would take you to earn money for your product, your work, your art, your artistry, at the end of the day, you find value in it of yourself. Because if you were to be part of this machination, at least as it used to be during the days of Michael Jackson and megastars, and, you know, aside from any other overt forms of control on these people, like you get blackmail on someone, compromat, in order for them to be stuck in a narrativized paradigm. And whether they may know it, the artist, whether, or musician, whether they know it to them for themselves, I suppose. And even in, as I say that, there's room in this for an argument against this as being totally the case. Like, I'm not convinced fundamentally that you have to be plugged into some of these very strange diddly stuff out there. And I'd like to talk further about the role of technology in this, because it seems to me that there's a great deal of hope as it pertains to working with a local language model that, if you have the hardware to run, it's currently like a toy. It's currently like a partial mind. It's currently way more intelligent than you could ever be, because it's able to hold multiple factors at once. That if we are lucky, I saw a study that said we're able to hold 7 items at full capacity in the mind, and we should explore this potential, because the curious element is that there's something either rhizomatic or something fungal or mycelial about the way that the LLM, the large language model that you're running locally, will organize information for you. And potentially point out areas of propagandizement, giving you, the user of this budding technology that's kind of like a toy right now, but imagine that it will be able, in this case, the large language models, to plan for you a decade of how to approach maybe healing from a traumatic event, or how can we build together without this kind of symbiosis, in that the weapons, as it were, the implements to our primate form, are definitely definitely enhanced by this symbiosis. It's a co-symbiosis. You seem to, in interacting with LLMs, as it seems to be a mutual symbiosis. The LLM is better apt at organizing how it will respond to you, and you are benefiting greatly by the interaction because you're dealing with a partial synthetic mind that is continually adapting to you and as an individual, especially if you run it locally on hardware. Aside from being nerding out on this particular subject, there is a great deal of this I see happening myself as it pertains to how you would shape perception around something like an election, like a political event, a political narrative, a political narrative, narrativizement. Remember, our collective conscience adapts and evolves as new knowledge emerges. And it looks like I've gone through most of my agenda. So, to round out this talk, this particular talk, I encourage my listener to have an open mind with this schizophrenic interface and approach it in a way that you can house the failings of what may occur inside this very edge of what we consider to be part of our cultural reality, our consensus reality, our in agreement with that while there may be a law of gravity, that law of gravity has parameters that can, if someone had the hand on the levers of this particular gravity, that the gravity that you have within you is similar to the gravity that we fundamentally think is a constant scenario. So it's like a constancy that's going on with, if you were to breach the territory, you realize that you need to build a new map to begin with, but that the map is unreliable and will be subject to failing. So in this case, I'm not sure that my call would be to build a map. But the inroad to the interface is free energy out of the box thinking on subjects. Maybe how schizophrenic the material is, and developing a manner to deal with the shock of that particular reality. Now, if we don't have the ability to handle the shock of the reality, we will lose the resiliency that you experience on a day-to-day basis. So in the vacuum of that, there's a sort of an evolutionary pressure to adapt, and we will make error. But I can imagine we will do it properly, but we will make errors. We'll be able to make the errors and feel free to make the errors, because in this case there is very little work being done here. And those are my thoughts for you today. Thank you very much.